Yamauka Teshu walked along the stone path of the monastery, meditating on the emptiness of the world. He had read countless sutras, listened to numerous masters, and finally, he had reached a conclusion. Nothing exists. The mountain wind blew gently, brushing his face with an imperceptible coolness. Zen is understanding that everything is illusion, he repeated to himself. When he arrived at the room where the master was waiting, he bowed his head and spoke confidently. Nothing exists. The master, an elderly man with a serene gaze, watched him in silence. Then, without warning, he took a bamboo fan and struck Teshu on the head. Teshu felt the impact clearly, a sharp pain that spread through his skull. He placed his hand on his forehead in surprise. "Master, why did you strike me?" The old man smiled. "If nothing exists," he asked, "where does this pain come from?" Teshu opened his mouth to respond, but no words seemed fitting. His mind, filled with concepts and theories, went blank before the simplicity of the experience. Teshu lowered his gaze, observing the wooden floor beneath his feet. His mind searched for an answer that would fit his understanding of Zen, but something inside him trembled, like the cherry leaves in the wind. "Master," he whispered, "pain is just an illusion." The old man let out a faint laugh and struck him again with the fan, this time on the shoulder. "Is this second blow also an illusion?" he asked calmly. Teshu felt the sting on his skin. His mind tried to hold onto the idea of emptiness, but his body responded with an undeniable truth. The blow was real. The master pointed to the sky with the fan. Zen is not about empty words. If pain is an illusion, why does your hand seek to soothe it? Teshu swallowed. Something inside him began to crack, like ice at the end of winter. The wind blew gently, making the branches of the old pine tree in the monastery courtyard creak. Teshu felt his breath stir slightly. "Master, if nothing exists, why do I feel this pain?" The old man smiled, pointing to the teacup resting on the table. "Take that cup," he ordered. Teshu obeyed and held it in his hands. "Now imagine that it doesn't exist." The young man stared at the cup, trying to convince himself of its non-existence. But there it was, the weight in his hands, the texture of the ceramic, the faint warmth of the tea inside. The master took the cup and gently placed it back on the table. When you walk the path of Zen, words are useful up to a point. But if you cling too much to them, they become chains. Teshu felt something inside him loosen, like a breeze clearing the fog. Teshu furrowed his brow, feeling his understanding crumble. Then, "Master, what is reality?" The old man waved the fan in front of his face, as if dispelling the smoke from a lamp. "Reality is this," he said. "The wind that caresses your skin, the sound of insects in the garden, the scent of incense burning on the altar." Teshu closed his eyes and listened. For the first time, he didn't try to analyze, didn't attempt to put words to the experience. He simply felt. The master continued, "If I strike you, you feel pain. If you take a cup of tea, you perceive its warmth. If you look at the sky, you see its vastness. You don't need to call it illusion or reality. It simply is." Teshu took a deep breath. Something inside him loosened, like a rope that had been too tight for years. Then, "Master, is Zen not about denying existence?" The old man smiled. "Zen is living without clinging to concepts. Existence and non-existence are just words. What matters is what is here and now." Teshu felt his mind clear, as if a thick fog had lifted with the morning light. For years, he had sought to understand Zen through words, sutras, intellectual debates. But in that moment, everything seemed pointless. The master waved the fan once more and snapped it shut with a dry click. "If you get trapped in the idea that nothing exists, You will miss the song of the birds, the flow of water in the stream, the whisper of the wind among the trees. Teshu looked around. The monastery was the same as always, but something in his perception had changed. The sound of the leaves rustling, the faint aroma of incense, the warmth of the tatami under his feet. Everything was intensely real. "Master," he whispered, "I have spent years searching for the truth in words, when all the while it has been here, in this moment." The old man nodded. "When you walk, just walk. When you eat, just eat. When it hurts, just hurt. You don't need to call it existence or illusion." Teshu let out a soft laugh. "Then, Master, what should I do now?" The master opened the fan and fanned himself gently. "Make tea." Teshu nodded and, without saying another word, walked toward the iron kettle resting on the embers. He poured hot water into a ceramic cup and watched the steam rise in subtle spirals. For the first time, he didn't try to analyze what he saw. He simply let the scene unfold, without interference from the mind. The master watched him in silence, with the serenity of one who knows the seed of understanding has been planted. Teshu extended the cup with both hands. "Master, the tea is ready." The old man took the cup, drank a sip, and closed his eyes in satisfaction. "Ah, the taste of tea is the taste of the present moment. Neither illusion, nor existence, nor emptiness. Just tea." Teshu smiled. "Then, Master, is this moment the truth?" The old man placed the cup on the table and waved the fan gently. "If you try to catch it with words, it escapes. If you simply live it, there is nothing more to seek." Teshu let out a sigh, as if with it, he released a weight he had carried for years. He took a sip of tea, and for the first time he simply drank tea. The tea flowed smoothly down his throat, leaving a faint bitterness that quickly dissipated. Teshu looked at the cup in his hands. He no longer saw it as a philosophical test, nor as a symbol of emptiness or existence. It was simply a cup with tea. The master smiled upon seeing the calm expression on his disciple's face. "Now tell me, Teshu," he asked in a peaceful voice, "does nothing exist?" The young man placed the cup on the table and looked at the old man. He felt the air entering and leaving his lungs, the gentle warmth of the tatami beneath his legs, the distant sound of bamboo creaking in the garden. "Master, I don't know." The old man burst out laughing and lightly tapped the floor with his fan. "Good. When you don't know, you are closer to the truth than when you think you know." Teshu closed his eyes for a moment. He no longer felt the need to cling to words, to prove his knowledge, or to solve the riddle of the universe. He was simply there, breathing, feeling, being. The wind blew gently through the window, caressing his face. Teshu slowly opened his eyes, as though seeing them for the first time. The world hadn't changed, but something inside him had. The master fanned himself calmly and looked at the sky. "Zen is not a concept that you can capture with the mind," he said. "It is the sound of the wind entering through the window. It is the sensation of tea on your tongue. It is the beating of your own heart." Teshu listened attentively. For the first time, he wasn't waiting for an answer. He was simply present in the listening. The master took another sip of tea and smiled. "If you keep asking yourself whether something exists or not, it is like trying to catch water with your hands. But if you simply drink the tea, you enjoy it effortlessly." Teshu nodded. His heart was light, his mind clear. He had no more questions. At that moment, a bird sang in the garden. Teshu turned his head and watched it without thinking of its meaning. He just listened, as if its song were part of him. The master stood up calmly. "It is time to chop wood," he said. Teshu smiled. He stood up without hesitation. Teshu followed the master into the garden. The air was fresh, the ground firm beneath his feet. The sound of the wind through the bamboo filled the space with a soft melody. as if the universe were breathing along with him. They reached the spot where the logs were stacked. The master took an axe and placed it in Teshu's hands. "Split the wood." Teshu nodded. He didn't think of the task as a symbol, nor did he seek hidden meaning. He simply raised the axe and brought it down. The blade sank into the log with a sharp, precise sound. The master smiled. "When you chop, just chop. When you drink tea, just drink." Teshu breathed deeply. Zen wasn't a theory, it wasn't an idea. It was this. He took another log and split it effortlessly. There was no doubt in his mind, no questions, just the pure act of chopping wood. The master took a freshly split piece of wood and tossed it into the fire. The flames danced, slowly consuming it. "This is life," he said. "What you think you are burns in the fire of the present moment, and in its place only what is remains." Teshu watched the flames. He no longer needed answers. He simply breathed, in complete silence. Teshu stayed there, watching the wood burn in the fire, the glow of the flames lighting his face. The air was thick with the fragrance of burning wood, and in that moment, there was nothing more. No questions, no need to understand beyond what he was experiencing. The master stayed by his side, also watching the fire, as though nothing else mattered. In the stillness of the afternoon, the sound of the wind and the crackling of the flames fused, creating a symphony that resonated deeply in his heart. "Each moment is an opportunity to be completely present," said the master, without taking his eyes off the fire. Teshu nodded slowly, feeling a peace that could not be explained with words. Zen was not a concept to understand, but a way of living in each act, however simple it might be. The sun began to set, coloring the sky in shades of orange and pink. Teshu looked at the horizon and felt the vastness of the world, but also his small yet meaningful connection to everything around him. It wasn't necessary to understand the entire universe to find peace. He just needed to be here as he was. The master looked at him for a moment and then smiled. "Now you can rest, Teshu. The truth is in your breath, in the movement of your hands, in the step you take. Nothing more." Teshu, with a light heart and a clear mind, bowed deeply. He had reached his destination without the need for an end, because in the end, everything he had been searching for was here in this very instant. With a smile, he headed to his room, leaving behind the sound of the wind and the glow of the flames. Zen was not a goal to reach, but a path to walk with each step.